Hey, before we get into this, if you are even thinking about buying a luxury home on 30A, I want you to do one thing right now. Pull out your phone, call or text me directly at 850-231-7026. No forms, no automated systems, just you and me talking about what you're actually looking for. My name's Jason Stevens. I'm with the Stevens Group and Premier Property Group here on 30A, and I have been helping high net worth buyers navigate this market for years. Now let's get into this because what I'm about to share with you could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars and a whole lot of heartache. If you're buying a home in the $3 million plus range on 30A, whether that's in Rosemary Beach, Alys Beach, Watercolor, Water Sound, Kaya Beach, Seaside, or anywhere along the coast, the single most important decision you will make is not the house. It's the agent you choose to help you buy it. Now, I know that sounds like something an agent would say, but stick with me here because I'm going to show you exactly why that's true. And I'm going to give you a specific set of questions and criteria to use when interviewing any agent, including me. Because here's the truth. The luxury real estate market on 30A is unlike most other markets in the country. The communities are different from each other. The rental rules are different. The management fee structures are different. The resale dynamics are different. And a buyer who walks in here without someone who truly knows this market can easily walk away thinking they got a great deal when they actually left significant money on the table, took on hidden risk, or bought a property that's going to be really hard to sell 5 years from now. I've seen it happen, and I want to make sure it doesn't happen to you. So I'm going to walk you through exactly how to evaluate a luxury real estate agent before you let them represent you on a multi-million-dollar purchase. Let's get into it. Let me start by giving you some context on why 30A is genuinely different and why experience in this specific market matters more than you might think. 30A is not just a beach town. It's a collection of distinct luxury communities, each with its own look and feel, rules, culture, pricing dynamics, rental regulations, and lifestyle appeal. Take Alys Beach, for example. It's one of the most sought after communities on the Gulf Coast. Gorgeous architecture, strong appreciation, but here's something I see trip buyers up all the time. If you're buying an investment property in Alys Beach, you don't get to choose your rental management company. The only option is Alys Beach Rental Management Company, and they charge a 40% management fee. Not the 20% that most buyers are used to, 40%. I can't tell you how many times I've had buyers come to me having talked to another agent already excited about a property in Alys Beach, already running their numbers based on 20% management fees, and those numbers just don't work at 40%. That's not a small error. On a high volume rental property, that could mean the difference between a solid investment and a cash flow negative situation. An agent who doesn't know that specific detail could cost you real money before you ever sign a closing document. That's just one example. Every community has its nuances. Water Sound has different rules than Watercolor. Kaya Beach Resort operates differently than Rosemary Beach. And the rental landscape across 30A overall is tightly regulated in ways that affect both your short-term income and your long-term exit strategy. The point is, a great luxury agent here is not a generalist. They are a specialist. And when you're writing a check for $3, $4, $5 million, you want a specialist. So with that as your backdrop, let's talk about how to find one. Here's the very first thing I'll look for when I evaluate whether any agent is worth working with. And it has nothing to do with their sales volume or how many signs you've seen on the road. I've bought properties in other states, so I like to go along these guidelines. Do they require a meeting with you before they start showing the properties? I call this the buyer consultation. Some agents call it a buyer's interview. Whatever you call it, it should happen before you ever walk through a single door. And if an agent is eager to just start sending you listings the second you call them, that's a yellow flag. Here's why this meeting matters so much. When I sit down with buyers, especially with couples, the first thing I do is a little exercise that I've found to be genuinely eye-opening. I have each person separately write down their top priorities in a property, what they absolutely must have, what they love to have, and what they're willing to be flexible on. Most of the time, couples are pretty aligned, but every so often, and this happens more than you'd expect, those two lists look completely different. One person is prioritizing proximity to the beach, the other is prioritizing a private pool and a large lot. One wants walkability to restaurants and nightlife, the other wants quiet and seclusion. And when those differences come out, we can talk about them before we've spent 2 days looking at homes and getting emotionally attached. That saves time, saves stress, and honestly, it might even save a few arguments. Beyond that, a good buyer consultation is where I ask a lot of questions that buyers often don't even know they need to answer. For example, do you understand how short-term rental rules work in this area? Because the answer to that question should directly affect which communities you look at and which you don't. It affects your buying strategy, your price point, and your projected return if you're planning to rent the property. I also spend a lot of time drilling down on the why behind the purchase, not in a nosy way, but in a strategic way. Why are you buying? What does success look like in 5 years from now? Are you buying this as a primary residence, a vacation home, an investment, or some other combination? How important is rental income? How often do you plan to use it personally? Here's what I've learned. A lot of buyers come in thinking they know exactly what they want, and through this conversation, the picture gets much clearer, and sometimes quite different than what they walked in believing. And occasionally, and I think this is actually a mark of a trustworthy advisor, I'll have buyers come in, and after going through this process together, we both realize they're not quite ready to buy yet. Maybe they haven't fully resolved their criteria. Maybe the financial structure isn't quite there. When that happens, I'll be honest with them. I'd rather tell you that now and earn your trust for when the time is right than push you toward a purchase that doesn't serve you. So, when you're vetting an agent, ask them, do you do a buyer consultation before we start looking at properties? What does that look like? Their answer will tell you a lot. Here's a question I want you to sit with for just a moment. Does your agent think about your interest or their commission? I realize that sounds harsh, but in any industry, there are people who are focused on closing the transaction, and there are people who are focused on taking care of the client. Those are not always the same thing. In the luxury real estate world on 30A, one of the clearest ways that distinction shows up is in how an agent handles rental projections. Almost every luxury property listed in this market comes with some kind of rental projection. And I'm going to be direct with you. Those projections are often optimistic, sometimes very optimistic. They're pulled from best case scenarios, peak seasons, full occupancy, favorable weather years, and presented in a way that looks compelling. A transactional agent will hand you that projection sheet, highlight the big number, and let your enthusiasm do the rest. What I do is different. Every investor client I work with gets what I call a net sheet. This is a document I put together that takes the rental projection and runs it through the real world actual management fees, platform fees, cleaning costs, maintenance reserves, property taxes, HOA, insurance, everything. When we're done, you have a realistic picture of what you're actually going to net on this property in a typical year. Not a best case, not what it could do, what it's likely to do. That net sheet has saved buyers from making emotional decisions that look great on paper and painful in practice. And more than once, it's helped a buyer choose between two comparable properties. Because when you run the real numbers, one of them is clearly a better investment than it appears at first glance. Beyond rental projections, I also want to talk about resale. And this is an area where I think a lot of agents fail their clients without even realizing it. Most people who buy a luxury home on 30A will sell it within 5 years. That's not speculation. It's just what the data and my experience show. Life changes, families grow, priorities shift, or the market moves in a favorable direction, and you want to capture the equity. What that means is that almost every buyer I work with is also a future seller, and I keep that in mind constantly. So if I'm walking through a property with you and there's something that gives me pause about resale, I'm going to tell you about it. Not to talk you out of a home you love, but to make sure you're making a fully informed decision. Maybe the home is beautiful, but it's closer to the highway than the photos suggest. And when the windows are open, you hear the traffic. You might be able to live with that, but will the next buyer? Maybe a home doesn't have a bedroom on the first floor, and that's a limitation that rules out a segment of buyers. Older buyers, families with small children, guests with mobility concerns. Again, you might be fine with it personally, but it narrows your future pool of buyers. I've had clients thank me years later for pointing something out in that initial walkthrough that they probably would have overlooked in the excitement of the moment. And that became something we were able to negotiate on, or something that affected our offer strategy. A good agent doesn't just help you buy the home you want today. They help you protect the asset you'll want to sell tomorrow. Hey, I want to pause here for a second. If you're watching this and thinking, I wish I had someone like this walking me through the process, that is exactly what I'm trying to do. Every single day for buyers at the $3 million level and above, all along 30A. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I put out content specifically designed to help luxury buyers and investors understand this market at a deep level. This is the kind of information you just don't find anywhere else. Let me ask you something. When you're buying a $5 million beachfront home, what standard of due diligence do you think the inspection should meet? I'll tell you how I approach it. I want my buyers to know everything about the property before they close. Every single thing. Not just the big ticket structural items, but the fogged windows, the early stage wood rot, the HVAC that's running but running tired, the drainage issue that only shows up after a heavy rain. Why? Because when you have a complete picture of the property's condition, you have real leverage. You can negotiate price reductions, you can require repairs, you can make an informed decision about whether this is still the right property given what you know. And if you decide to close anyway, you go in with no surprises, which is one of the best feelings in real estate. The inspector I work with most frequently is beach to buyer home inspectors, and I use them specifically because they are thorough in a way that most inspectors simply are not. Fogged windows, which indicate seal failure, can cost thousands to replace. Wood rot in areas that aren't immediately visible, early moisture intrusion, issues behind walls that another inspector might walk past without a second glance, they find these things. And finding these things before closing rather than after is enormous. I've had buyers who've gone through the inspection process with me and come out on the other side having negotiated significant credits or repairs based on findings that might have been missed entirely with a less thorough inspector. That's real money. On a multi-million-dollar property, even a fraction of a percent on concessions pays for a very thorough inspection many times over. When you're interviewing agents, ask them directly, who do you use for inspections and why? If they say, oh, I have a few people, I recommend whoever's available, that's not the answer you want. A great buyer's agent has a standard for due diligence, and they stand behind it. All right, let's get practical. Here are the specific questions I'd encourage you to ask any luxury agent before you hire them to represent your purchase on 30A. Question 1, how well do you know the specific communities I'm interested in? This is not a generic, how long have you been in real estate question. This is specific. If you're interested in Kai Beach Resort, ask them what the ownership structure looks like and what amenities are exclusive to owners versus hotel guests. If you're interested in Alys Beach, ask them about the rental management situation. If you're interested in water sound, ask them about beach access and the private amenities. If they can't answer these questions in detail without hesitation, that tells you something important. Question 2, do you work primarily with buyers or sellers? And do you specialize in this price range? This matters. An agent who predominantly lists properties has a different skill set and a different set of loyalties than an agent who focuses on buyer representation. And an agent who primarily works in the $1 to $2 million range may not have the experience, the relationships, or the instincts required at the $3 million plus, where negotiations are more complex, due diligence is more critical, and mistakes are more costly. Question number 3, how do you approach rental projections and investment analysis? Any agent can hand you a rental projection sheet. Ask them, do you build out a net sheet that accounts for all costs? How do you validate the projections you share with me? If they don't have a structured answer to this, or if they suggest you just take the listing projections at face value, be very cautious. Question number 4, how do you think about resale when helping me select a property? Listen for whether they're thinking beyond the transaction in front of them. Do they think about the buyer pool 5 years from now? Do they flag features that might limit resale, or do they just help you find what you love today with no thought for tomorrow? Question number 5. What's your process for the buyer consultation? You already know why this matters after what we covered earlier. If they look at you blankly and say, "We just start looking at homes," that's your answer. Question number 6. Who do you use for inspections, and what's your standard for due diligence? You want some with a named, trusted inspector and a clear philosophy around inspections, not just whoever's available. Question number 7. What does working with you actually look like day to day? You want to know, how do they communicate? How quickly do they respond? Are they accessible, or are you going to be passed off to an assistant most of the time? In a fast-moving luxury market, responsiveness can be the difference between getting the right property and losing it. These questions are not meant to trip anyone up. They're meant to reveal whether that person you're talking to has actually earned the right to guide you through the biggest financial decision of your year, possibly your decade. All right, I want to close this section with something that's a little less tactical and a little more human. At the end of the day, hiring a luxury real estate agent on 30A or anywhere is an act of trust. You are trusting this person with your money, your time, and the quality of one of the biggest decisions you will ever make for your family. The best agents I know, myself included, I hope, see themselves as advisors, not salespeople. There is a meaningful difference. A salesperson is trying to close the deal. An advisor is trying to take care of you. And sometimes taking care of you means having an honest conversation about why a particular property isn't right, or why this isn't the right time to move forward. I've walked away from commission on more than one occasion because I believe the best thing I could do for my client was pump the brakes. And every single time, those clients have come back because they knew I was looking out for them. That's the standard you should hold your agent to. Not just competence, though that matters deeply, but character. Do they tell you the truth even when it costs them? Do they think about your long-term interest even when the transaction is right in front of them? Do they actually prepare you for what you're walking into? If you find that, you have found a great agent. So let me wrap this up with a quick summary of what we covered today. When you're buying a $3 million plus home on 30A, the agent you choose matters enormously. Here's your checklist. Number 1, they should require a buyer consultation before showing you a single property. If they don't, they're not treating this like the major decision it is. Number 2, they should know the specific communities you're interested in at a detailed level. Rental rules, management fee structures, resale dynamics, the nuances that can change the financial picture of a purchase completely. Number 3, they should have a process for helping you see past the optimistic rental projections and understand the real numbers, including a true net income analysis. Number 4, they should think about resale from day one, because you will likely be a seller one day, and the decisions you make today will affect that outcome. Number 5, they should have a rigorous standard for inspections. Not just someone who can do it, but someone who is thorough enough to protect you at this level. Number 6, they should be an advisor first, someone who tells you the truth even when it's inconvenient. If you're looking for someone who checks all of those boxes, I'd love to talk. My name's Jason Stevens. I'm with the Stevens Group here on 30A. This is the market I live in, know deeply, and am genuinely passionate about. And helping buyers like you make the best possible decision here, that's what I do. Call or text me directly at 850-231-7026. And if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to this channel. I put out content regularly that covers this market, the communities along 30A, investment strategy, buyer education, information that I genuinely believe you can't find anywhere else. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.